That one is about, I think, 2 minutes. Yep, 2 minutes. Anyway, hello. See if that's got us hopefully working. I know last week somehow it will process out, but yep. Hope everybody's having a good day. Oh, I sure do, Donna.
Good
Can't tell.
afternoon, evening.
I think it's on. Oh, yeah, where is my wireless? All right. Yes, ma'am. Did it come on, Sue? Are you able to check it? Okay. Well, we were just talking about Charlie Kirk and losing him losing his life. And here we are on study of Ecclesiastes, and we're in chapter 9. And chapter 9 and verse 11, 9:11, that's a kind of a 911 is a pretty famous little thing for us.
It will be 911 tomorrow.
As the other incredible thing about the coincidence, or however we want to refer to this, but we're studying tonight the relevance of what 9/11 kind of means to us. And I brought this up in chapter 8, and we'd like to, they're really 8 and 9. Like I said, we could do them in one session, but it would take way too long, so that's why we divided it up. But the theme is still out there and present for us, and that is the fact that we're facing the reality of death. And he's summarizing in this that, chapter 8 and verse 8, I talked to a friend today whose cousin had taken his own life or overdose. And, his wife was very distraught because, something I could have done. And we all feel that way when somebody takes their life, when something like that happens, when that tragedy happens. But chapter 8 and verse 8, what we studied last week, that no one has power over the Spirit to retain the Spirit. And no one has power of the day of death. There's no release from that. So that's in chapter 8 and verse 8. There is no release from that. And then you have 9/11. There's no release from death. And then it says, the race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill, but time and chance happens to us all. So now we have kind of a larger understanding of God's will. I need to bring this down here. I don't know why I forgot, but I did. Yes. Common sense may overcome them all. Time and chance may overcome them all. Well, and actually, funny you'd say that, because my next slide has to do with, and that was in the NET, or what version? In the New English translation, which we were kind of talking about the way it has updated things. And how did it read? Time and chance overcomes them all. So it has the implication of how that time and chance puts everybody into a balance on the same ground. We're going to read that in chapter 9 because you get through the beginning, and he's going to say there's this evil that's done under the sun. Let's chapter 9, and we'll just go to the first few verses, because when he starts reading it, he's talking about the poor, the rich, the wise, the foolish, the religious, the non-religious, they all have something that happens to them that's the same. Now, we talked about death and the certainty of that, but there's another element in regard to life under the sun that is going to replicate that. But we're introduced to the providence of God. Chapter 8 and verse 8, no one, we use that phraseology, that it was his time. That when somebody passes away, it was their time. And Ecclesiastes chapter 3, what does it say about God and how he has made everything? Made all things beautiful in his time, or in its time. So now, chapter 9, we're really getting to a place that's going to help us. And I have a few questions. But chapter 7, during the day of these fleeting life, I have seen both of these things. Sometimes a righteous person dies prematurely in spite of his righteousness, and sometimes a wicked person lives long in spite of his evil deeds. So we start talking about that when we see what happens in our world today, and just the fact that there is this element, chapter 9 and verse 12, that for no man also does not know his time. All right. Finishing up in chapter 15. Chapter 8, read with me. We're going to read in verse 15. So I commended enjoyment because a man has nothing better under the sun than to eat and drink and be merry, for that will remain with him in his labor in the days of his life which God has given him under the sun. So there's a portion in life. When I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on the earth, even though one sees no sleep day or night. There's this work ethic that is endless. In other words, the job's never done, right? Every day you got to get up and you got to go. You got to do. Then I saw the work of God, and that man cannot find out the work that he does from the beginning to the end. For though a man labors to discover it, he will not find it. Moreover, though a wise man attempts to know, he will not be able to find it. Solomon reaches the point in life, just like every one of us, that we can't go any further in our understanding of how it's going to work out. Now, so just walk into chapter 9. Remember those, we put the markers there. In the original, you didn't have chapters division, so it would just be like reading that man will not be able to find it. For I consider all this in my heart, chapter 9 and verse 1, that I could declare it all, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hands of God. People know neither love nor hatred by anything they see before men. What we learn about history is that we don't learn about history, as Fred used to say. And when we talk about the discovery of the providence of God, is that we see that, what does verse 1, chapter 9 and verse 1 say that it is? That our works, whether they be righteous and wise in their works, are in the hand of God. What do you think it means that people neither love nor hatred or anything that is before them? What do you think that it means? This wisdom literature should provoke you to thought. But he's in essence saying that, the generation before, because they experienced love or hatred, does not replace my experience with love and hatred. So he's saying that every generation replicates this same behavior. And not only that, but watch what occurs here in chapter 9, verse 1 through 6, about everyone having this in common, and it's not just death. Okay? There's the equal playing field, but actually he's going back beyond death's door. He's going to say, riches are not to the men of understanding. Race is not to the fastest person. So this is really how we're going to understand how life works sometimes. So you don't become overly righteous. These are the things that we studied back previously. It's just so amazing how that they all fit. All right. Verse 2. All things come alike to all. One event happens to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good, the clean, and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and to him who does not sacrifice. As is the good, so is the sinner. He who takes an oath and he who fears an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that one thing happens to all. Truly, the hearts of the Son of Men are full of evil. Madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. So, we have an evil done, and what is it? Everybody dies? Read on to the end there and to get to verse 6. For him who is joined to the living, this is how you view life under the sun. Okay? How you can choose to do well. But for him who is joined to all the living, there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. I like that. I like that verse. Now, you got some memory, some mind energy to apply to that. What does that mean? What is the difference between a living dog and a dead lion? Doesn't matter, does it? The equalizer has been equaled. In fact, it's superior because if you got breath, and he says in this, now this is where Jehovah's Witnesses get a doctrine of annihilation. Okay? We're about to read a verse that if you were studying with a Jehovah's Witness or they come to your house, if you read this verse with them before they get there, they'll red mark you. So it says, for the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. This goes back to the beginning in chapter 1 about memory being forgotten. Also, their love, their hatred, remember, everybody has to experience their own. But what happens to everybody's own? The thing that you're passionate about, your love, your hatred, guess what? It's going to die with you. You know, I mean, you want to press this thing forward. But I'm saying that which is in you. Now, he's not talking about influence. Don't get misunderstood here. And he's also saying when they say they will die and the dead know nothing, what does he say? What does he mean by that? That when you're correct. The perspective of life under the sun. It's not referring to we die and then we become stupid and in another realm. So we have one thing in common, that we're all going to die. But the commonality that he's seeing here is we all, if we're alive, have greater value than we think. You think but he's better to be a living dog than a dead lion. And the way we treat dogs in America, it wouldn't be a bad run. I told my Yorkie one time, man, if I could get them 7 years in one. So, powerful introduction to getting us to this next little read, because here is the key to happiness in your life. Okay? And just get a hold of it, because it says, go and eat your bread with joy. We get to this realization. Their love, their hatred, the envy, it's all going to die with me. Whatever my passions are, whatever my hobbies were, whatever my interests were, whatever my collection was, it's going to die with me. It's gone. Someone else will possess it. He's talked about that all the way through. We've been discussing that. Who are we going to leave it to? So he says, in light of all of that, I want you to go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already accepted your works. Now, don't read into that okay, He's accepted me as being sinful. He's not saying that at all, and we're going to see where that comes in at the very next verse. God has already accepted your works. Let your garments always be white. So there's purity. And your head lack no oil. That's being consecrated, dedicated. Keep your and it's also, that the anointing the head with oil was meaning so many things. It was a grooming process, but it was also like with the dedication of one who was going to be a servant or a king or a ruler. And so, death is certain. He's checking that off. Now he's saying, go and live your life. Live your life. And so, in that, verse 9, live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he has given you under the sun. So he kind of, insulted your life a little bit there. In other words, you just live joyfully, you live it up with the vain things that you're pursuing. Enjoy your meal. Enjoy what you do. For all your days are vanity. For that is your portion in life. So he's serving up this hevel, this breathing nonsense, and he's saying, you know what? That portion that you have in life, you live it to the fullest. That's your portion under the sun. And then in verse 10, it's a penetrating admonition of not just a work ethic. I've used it in teaching work ethic, but it's a life ethic. It's a Christian living ethic. Look at verse 10. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. And why? Look at what the reason he's giving. He's repeating what he just said. Remember, he was trying to see it all from the beginning to the end in one picture. Chapter 9 and verse 1. He said, even no matter how wise I could get, I couldn't capture it all in one picture from beginning to end. And now we're getting some conclusions. We're starting to scale down till we get to chapter 12, and you're going to hear the conclusion of the whole matter, and that is to fear God and keep his commands. Remember, that kind of stands out, like it doesn't make really a connection to the rest of the book because it's not talking about God. But it makes every connection to it because we don't know our time. We know that we have a limited lifespan, and we know that there is a right and a wrong. Sometimes bad people have good things happen, and just like today, a guy that was out of college and trying to defend morals and just fundamental principles of right and wrong and was assassinated. So it'll be a day that will affect a lot of things. I mean, you back in What is True days, I didn't feel any threatening or any concern. Was thinking about, it'd be great to get back to do that again. And for the church, go back to the state fair. Or some of the guys that I know and know on Facebook, they go to colleges and they put up their little banners and their signs and do very similar things. Got a Bible question, or just engage in a little conversation. This guy was just very good at what he did in challenging, a lot of issues. But so what we just read was essentially you care for your physical body, one's outward appearance, lawful relationships that exist, live joyfully with the wife, and then the application of your abilities. What you get in your hand to work with, use it. Now that is advice that I give to those that are 85 and those that are 15. And that text is a key, because when it says live joyfully, he's referring to life and the vanities that are in it. He says, in your vanity. So that is truly, as Evelyn would say, a place where we have to choose to do well. We choose that. But I mean, he couldn't command you to live joyfully. Hey, snap out of it. Live joyfully. But he's telling us of a disposition of life and a work ethic in life and just the application of abilities, even though this could happen. That's where you get to 9/11. We just read right up to it. And he says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might, for there is no knowledge or wisdom or grave where you're going. And I returned to the sun, and this is what I saw. Where we read about bad things happening to good people and unjust things occurring. Well, this is what we're running into. Race is not to the swift, or the battle, nor the bread to the strong, nor riches to men of understanding, or favor to men of skill, but time and chance happens to them all. So that time and chance, and that is, it happens to us all. And I have two questions. Well, what has happened to you in the realm of time and chance? Anybody? Anything? How has time and chance changed you? It's a very important question. Because remember, we have said that we've just been introduced to the providence of God. And while we've been introduced to the providence of God, we have been told that there's things that are beyond our ability to know. But use what you have, the relationships, the access, whatever your hand finds to do, you apply it. Because there's not going to be work later on. And now he's not under the new covenant, and it doesn't have the pictures that we have. But we do know this, that when I read this, and the way I have applied time and chance happening to myself, should it help me or would it hurt me? It depends on how you look at it. You have something to happen that's beyond sad, it's beyond just, it's beyond right. And those things those happen. They happen to everybody. It's not, he's pointing to us all. And he said, whether you are a worshiper, whether you revere God and worship him, or whether you don't, this is the way it's going to fall out. And that then gets it to this point. Yes. There you go. Very good point. You fell into time the day you were born. Since that time, you're in that restraint. So the time element is happening right now. No control. And then the time and chance, the way that he's just laying it out is that as you live your life during that time span, is that it's not always going to work out fair. And I mean, he's saying the race is not to the swift, the battle to the strong. He's saying you apply your hand with all that you got. But, it didn't matter how much I trained. I was never going to be a runner. Never. Ever. DNA, whatever, attitude, whatever it was just not going to happen. What has happened to you, and how has time and chance changed you? I've known a lot of y'all for a lot of your life. How has time and chance all changed us? Yes.
Well, I look at it like one instance we began this endeavor, many of us now think this,
Yeah. It's in God, from God's providential hand. It's all about perspective. What Terry had said a minute ago. It's how you look at it. Because God overrules even the worst of circumstances and incidents for a greater good.
It would take way too long to tell you the story, but I'll give you the short version. The providence of God is real, and it happened in my life. And the short version is I left the church for a long time. The one thing that I never did is I never lied to myself and told myself that I was okay and that God was okay. Came to the point where I hated myself and I hated my life. And the providence of God put me in a situation where I was able to turn to Him. And like I say, there's a longer version.
Yeah,
And
but
if I gave you the longer version, you would see the providence of God in work in multiple ways.
yep, it is, and I think that this is the one point. Like I said, when we get to this part, that everyone has a story. Everyone has, and the unique part about the providence of God is that it's going on right now. And that's the hard part, because, of capturing everything that's in front of us is difficult. That's why he says, whatever you get in front of you, lay your hand to it. Because you'll see as we get to the end that that's going to be God's design to bring it about that way. And verse 12, no man also does not know his time, lest like fish taken in a cruel net, like birds caught in a snare, so the sons of men are snared in an evil time when it falls suddenly upon them. Man, that's not what I wanted to hear. But that is life. That's a reality of life that we don't dwell on, and he tells us not to dwell on it. He says, live joyfully. But he's updating us all the while on the latest news story of the story of your life. And, the thing is that it's limited. Now, Matthew 6, the Lord says, sufficient for today is its own trouble. So we live for today. And Ecclesiastes explaining that principle to us. And then James 4, when we plan, how do we plan? When it says that it's in the Lord's hand, there what do we see in the way that we say it? If it be God's will. We just recognize only so much we can control. And that's when Solomon in chapter 9, verse 1, when he made that declaration about how he's seeing everything unfold, that he's having to come to this realization, no matter how hard, how bad, how much I want to know how it's all going to come together, that God plans from the beginning to end, I can't find it. I think that's why we're going to see the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear God. Yes.
You know, it's really hard to study the book of Ecclesiastes without studying the New Testament. Live for today is the prime example.
Yep.
The verse before that, Matthew 6:33,
Yes.
says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." So it's not just a matter of living for today; it's how you live for today is what's important.
And that's the parallel that he begins to unfold. And, the nice thing about the Ecclesiastes writer, is he's saying, you think that if I'm going to live and serve my flesh, then I'm not going to have to go through anything bad. Wrong. So he's saying that for those that are righteous and those that are unrighteous, those that try to live their life good, those that don't, they're all subject to this reality. So he's choosing God. He says, and this is where we say, wisdom is going to be better. Here, let's get to next. 9 is verse 13. We're going to read through the rest of the chapter. And how will wisdom preserve better than physical ability? And I want to go ahead and share this, and that is, there is a great king and a poor wise man. And we're going to learn something in the reading. This wisdom I have also seen under the sun, and it seems great to me. There was a little city with a few men in it, and a great king came against it, besieged it, and built great snares around it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Isn't that a great story? So you want to hear the ending? Read this story, and would you say this is a happy ending or a sad ending? So the king besieges it. This little poor guy goes out and he takes care of whatever the snares were. He delivers the city, yet no one remembered that same poor man. I guess he rides off into the sunset and everybody lives happily ever after and forgets all about what he did. He's just saying this is unjust. So he says, then I said, so here's how I love when Solomon, when the critic comes to conclusions, and this is where we're going to wrap up pretty quick here, and that is, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. What happened? What happened to the poor man? Hey, what's everybody say? If you're so smart, why ain't you rich? That's not the application, but what we're learning is wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. Words of the wise, softly or quietly spoken, should be heard rather than the shout of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. Isn't that the truth? That one sinner. So, as we kind of walk through this, I just want you to realize that we've been introduced to the spirit of man. Because even though he's talking about life under the sun, and he keeps talking about that we're done when you're through on this earth, he's also brought us to the reality that we're going to return. We're going to dust, spirit returning to the God who gave it. And this really is getting us what we just mentioned there from Brother Travis, is that you get up each day, you remove the I quit strategies that we've developed through the years, and you pursue peace. And that's where you discover mercy and how to do what is good. And then you begin to learn how to fight. Okay? How to fight. And that is, wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. You utilize God's wisdom. That's why it's so important to have this Bible study. And, well, I had a couple of questions, and that was, what is the evil that's being considered, and why is it considered an evil when it says that one thing happens to them all, verse 3, that truly the hearts of the sons of men are fully set in madness and folly, but in them it is joined to the living. From a world perspective, when you die, it's over. So live your life while it is available. And the other question I was going to ask was, does verse 5 teach annihilation after death? When he's dead, he doesn't know anything at all. What do you think he's... Yes? Yeah. The reality is that from this earth's perspective, it is over. And what message does verse 6 have for those that believe when it says their love, their hatred, and nevertheless they will have a share in it? Never more will they have a share in anything under the sun. What that means? When it's over, it's over. That's it. Look at that. Mia's bringing it. It must be time to stop because we got... All right, y'all. And then, of course, the whole question is, how does the acceptance of death help us in life? And how does it help us how does it help us to understand truly the benefit of understanding what time and chance means? I think of all of the things that we can learn and know, and that is the value of time and chance, because there is a providential opportunity that is always in the midst of time and chance. God has promised it. All right, we'll post up there chapter 10 next week.